let it play a little bit. Ladies and gentlemen, the So What Morning Show back in the building, and it's gonna be crazy. Topics galore. You know what we do. We like to rattle the bird cage of your brain, stretch your consciousness. Yeah, I'm so excited right now. Got great guests. Let me get to it right now. Just let me get right to the business. You know how we do. Books, community empowerment, and then the topic. So, really quickly, my first piece that I need to promote really quickly here. Just Listen, Dr. Mark Goulston. This is only one of about 4,000 books this man has authored and put out. They're all great. They're all dope. Very insightful. Please, don't hesitate. Go support the brother right now, Dr. Mark Goulston. Just Listen, as well as, this is a good one too, Get Out of Your Own Way at Work and Help Others Do the Same. Conquer Self-Defeating Behavior on the Job. Dr. Mark Goulston. Very important that you support his movements. What's your other one? Persuasion?
What is it? Real Influence. Persuade without pushing, gain without giving in. Yeah. Well,
you're a little old. I understand. Right. Well. So yeah, here we go. Please support Dr. Mark Goulston. His work is very important. Good stuff to have in your reading, in your library. For today's book, for today's topic, Help! I'm in Love with a Narcissist by Stephen Carter and Julia Sokol, right? Help! I'm in Love with a Narcissist. Go get the book ASAP. There's another one called Malignant Self-Love, Narcissism Revisited by Sam Vaknin. And I can't read this last name, but it's Hindu apparently. It has 37 letters in it, and I'm not going to be able to pronounce that. But Sam Vaknin, right? Malignant Self-Love, Narcissism Revisited. It's a little pricey, but who cares? It's going to help you. It's going to change your life. One other quick thing. I'm promoting an artist, a friend of mine. I've been knowing him for years. It's this guy's manager. This kid's name is Paris, right? And he has a breakout record here in Los Angeles on KJLH. I want you guys to call them. Oh, this is the music in the background. Apparently, it's being played on Los Angeles' KJLH. And we want you guys to request it. So the request line is 323-213. What is that? 310-3108. Reach out. Request a song. Paris. All right? That's what I'm doing there. Let me move to the next piece. This right here is Hot Monkey Lava. You know I like to present you with challenging things. This is my homeboy. I've known this kid since he was a kid, like 13, 14 years old. His name is Lemuel LaRoche. He is a poet, a teacher, a lecturer, graduated from Georgia, I think Georgia State. No, not Georgia State, but the Bulldogs. Which one? Georgia, forgot the name of that college down there. It's
University of Georgia.
The University of Georgia, the Bulldogs. That's where he's from. This dude is incredible. It's called What Can One Man Do? Life the Griot. What he has done, he's like a counselor, a therapist. What this kid has done is nothing short of amazing. He's taken the game of chess and applied it to life with dealing with inner city youth. So he sits these kids down and teaches them the game of chess. And he explains to them, you're a pawn in this game of life. But at the end of the day, if the pawn makes it to the other side of the board, he can become any piece on the table. You feel? Oh, it's amazing. Look at your life and the decisions you make. And just like in the game of chess, you have to make decisions with the forethought of 4 or 5 moves ahead. So just like you tell people to pause in that moment, just imagine what could happen if you acted. So in that brief moment, pause and find out and check in with yourself. Find out where you are before you do something. And he's taken these inner city youth, teaching them the game of chess in context to life. That's his community outreach program. It's a DVD. His website, pull up the website again. I think it's important that you guys support the guy. Go to his website, www.lifethegriot.com, or griot, however you want to pronounce it, lifethegriot.com. Very, very inspirational brother. And on top of that, he's an out of sight, out of this world poet. Dude's amazing. If you don't go check him out, you're worthless.
Is he a friend of yours?
He's a friend of mine. I've known him since he was 14.
Okay, let's talk offline. There's an introduction I want to make to him.
Well, let's do it then, Dr. G. Put your white weight on it. I'm just anyway, the white man has called my friend Lemuel LaRoche into a private meeting. Now, our in-studio guest. Wait, not yet. Not yet, because I'm so excited she's here. Not yet. I want you to go get blackmastery.com. Very, very, very important neurolinguistic programming that I've been pushing for the longest. The reason why I'm doing it is because it's life-changing. It's literally life-changing. I've been listening to it ever since she gave it to me. I've been listening to it every day. Blackmastery.com. Rewriting the programming of victimhood as it pertains to black consciousness. Rewriting Willie Lynch. Rewriting all of the bullshit beliefs that we have about each other. I always say, when sisters start believing in brothers, and when brothers start believing in sisters, and stop listening to a negative propaganda-filled narrative that we, push on each other, we will be such a powerful, more loving and beautiful community. This woman with Iyanla Van Zant and all of these different neurolinguistic programming tools has put together a programming device that when you listen to it, it rewrites self-hate. I can't stress how important and powerful it rewrites self-hate. That's amazing. That's amazing. I mean, I'm on a section right now called The Belief Breakthrough. Let's break through some of these limiting beliefs. It is amazing. Blackmastery.com. Now, over to my home girl. Play the intro real quick. Do you hear that music we play? And everybody loves it. She's in the building. Jasmine J. Mitchell, melodiously fly, is in. That's her. Just singing and beautiful and. Go give us a piece, babe. Just give us a piece.
Right now?
Look, this is her video in the background. All beautiful and stuff. She's in the building right now. She has a new EP.
Hello.
Tell us. Where can we find it? Where can we go get that record?
You can find it on Bandcamp. Mm-hmm. It's called Love Kills the Demon, and it's not necessarily new.
Slow down. Love
don't
does
talk like
what?
Zoe. Yeah, slow down.
Okay. It's called Love Kills the Demon.
Wow. Yeah. EP on Bandcamp.com, right? Yeah. And it's a donation-based process.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, man. Talk to them about
just
that.
Whatever you feel like you want to donate. And I want to say thank you to all the listeners that have been purchasing it thus far. I know Zoe has been promoting it, and I just want to take some time to do that. Now that I'm here, I really appreciate the support from everybody. And I have a new album that I've been working on. It's called The Pharaoh's Parade, which is being produced by Shafiq Hussein.
The Zed Festival for King Zoser? Indeed. The Pharaoh's Parade.
Exactly. And this is some of the music. This is the first single off of that project, too. So, which should be coming out summertime.
Beautiful. You guys have to support her. It's very important that you go out right now to Bandcamp.
Love Kills the Demon.
Love Kills the Demon. Yeah. Support her right now.
J. Mitchell melodiousfly.bandcamp.
J. Mitchell melodiousfly.bandcamp.
Yes.
That's what you need to do right now. Please show her love. Show her the Zoe What Morning Show love that she deserves. You guys been loving these tracks. Every time we play it, you give her love. Show her your love by supporting her movement. We appreciate you guys. Man, this is going to be a crazy topic. When I come back later, it's going to be crazy. I'm going to present a couple of more pieces before we get out of here, before we take this break. But when I come back, I'm going to come back with a topic. I'm going to tell them guests, questions, Today's topic is so crazy. It's bananas. I'll be back in 2.2 seconds, all right? Holla!
And one of the greatest tragedies in life is getting to the end of your life and looking back and realizing it was mediocre, and it didn't have to be that way. The number one reason is people are unwilling to listen and care about what's important to the other person. But what if you could be someone who dared to care about everybody in your life? When you're in love, smoke gets in your eyes. But when you're anxious, you talk more than you listen. I asked my wife a month ago, I said, I don't know whether to have an affair or buy a motorcycle. And she said, if you have an affair, I'll kill you. If you get the motorcycle, you'll kill yourself. Go with the bike.
Hi, Dr. G. He hates his music.
Don't I embarrass myself enough? I mean, is this like a dunk shot? You have to do that? I want Melodious Fly to do my intro.
Oh, no. You got to have the elevator music stiff whiteness. That's for you.
What kind of... Do I have to take ballroom dancing to even do that?
Oh, my God. What kind of music do you want? You want Jay Mitchell to do your intro?
I would love that.
Oh, and now you're going to get some bass in your ear. I would love that. Larry White over here. Okay, great. What are your tips, man?
Okay,
Come on.
Okay. Well, you're going to make the link to today's show. So here are my tips. If you go to Psychology Today and you look up Know Any Narcissists, you'll find this. But I'm going to read this to tee up our talk, and what's going to happen is after I read this, all of us will have to leave the room because it applies to all of us.
To everyone.
Okay, Know Any Narcissists. A know-it-all who doesn't know what he's talking about is a jerk, whereas a know-it-all who does know what he is talking about is just simply an asshole. I think that sort of makes sense.
Doc's cursing again.
I'll take that back. I'll gargle during the break. Actually, I heard from a DWI attorney. Do you know that if you haven't been drinking and you've been gargling with Listerine and you don't swallow it, you will fail a sobriety breath test? Did you know that?
Really?
So don't gargle before you drive. Just drink the bottle. Anyway.
Okay.
So here are 13 ways about ways narcissists offend. So see if it sounds like anyone you know.
Ooh,
see if it sounds like anyone you know in our room here. 1.
You see,
okay,
I saw that.
Okay, Geoff isn't here because he knew he'd be on the list. They interrupt you in the middle of what you're saying and expect you to listen to them.
What'd you say, Doc?
There you go.
No, I'm just kidding.
They take offense when you interrupt them. They interrupt you.
Let me finish. Go ahead.
Let's go. Do you want to do this autobiography?
No, I'm just...
They interrupt you in the middle of when you're thinking about something without asking if it's a good time to talk, and they expect you to immediately stop whatever you're thinking about and give them your undivided attention. Wow, that's a run-on sentence.
No, give me an example of that, though, Doc. Like, if you're busy doing something and they just come in and go, hey, look at this right here.
Well, this is going to be very sexist, so I'm not only a racist, I'm a sexist on the show.
Wow.
A lot of times, men will be deep in thought about something. Mm-hmm. And often, sometimes the women in their life will think, well, if they're not saying anything, I can interrupt them. And so what will happen is the woman will just sort of say something and want your immediate undivided attention right then and there. Mm-hmm. And if you're thinking about something that you're trying to solve in your head, you have to bookmark it so you don't lose it. Oh. And now I'm not saying that makes women narcissistic, but that's an example of when people interrupt you. They're self-absorbed with whatever's going on with them, and they think if you're not talking, you can be interrupted.
Good point. Let's go, Doc.
They expect you to change whatever you're thinking, doing, and feeling to what they believe you should be thinking, doing, and feeling, and for you to do it with a smile. And be grateful to them. Oh, thank you for helping me be a better person. They scowl and act hostile when you accidentally bump into them. That's a good thing. Have you bumped into someone and the narcissist will look at you like, what are you doing?
Right. Or what the fuck are you doing?
There you go.
There we go.
I'm glad you swore for us.
Yeah. I just wanted to, give it some realness.
Let's see. If you're walking along the side of a road or on a path and you approach them, they make you walk around them. If you're walking toward it's a narrow thing.
They won't move.
They won't move. They expect you to move around them. They are easier to upset than they are to please. They rarely say, I'm sorry, and if they do so, they do it insincerely or begrudgingly or just to get you off their back.
Wow.
They rarely say thank you because they feel so entitled. They rarely congratulate you because they're unable to root for anyone else. How's that one?
That's heavy.
Oh, yeah. And when they demand something, you're afraid to say no. 12, when they complain about something, you are afraid to tell them to just deal with it because you're afraid they'll go ballistic or become coldly sullen and shut down. And finally, you're chuckling and agreeing with most of this list, but would be scared stiff to show it to them because you walk on eggshells around them most of the time.
Wow. Ladies and gentlemen, with that said, those were the Dr. G's relationship toolbox points that's going to bring in today's show. Let me clear my throat. Me. The narcissistic show. That's what we're going to cover today. Narcissism. Very, very important topic. You know, I have some revolutionary ideas on it, Doc. You may not like. However, we're going to go at it hard. Here are the questions. In this competitive, me-first, capitalistic American culture, right, would you say this is the perfect incubator for growing a healthy nation of narcissists? Right? We're competitive. It's me first. That's capitalism at its finest. Right? Michael Jackson was a narcissist. Perfectionist. You know, this is about me. It's in love, but play the record the way I made it. Right? You have to be a narcissist in order to survive here in America. Who disagrees? Who agrees? 855-878-4652. Question. How is a narcissistic personality disorder diagnosed? And is the person doing the diagnosis, right? Let's just be real. Are they coming from a space of an actual science? There is some question that psychiatry isn't an actual science. They consider it a pseudoscience. Some people do, right? Crazy stuff. Is there a cure/treatment for narcissistic personality disorder? I'm of the same mindset as Doc. I think everyone is narcissistic, especially in this culture. You can't not be. You can't not be, right? Should ageism, racism, sexism, and classism be seen as a type of societal narcissism? What about nationalism? My country, fuck yours. Let's go to war, bitch. Hey, what do we do? Right? I'm just saying. This is it. What about religion? We're the chosen ones. The rest of you are fodder for the devil. Spiritual narcissism. It's every institutional narcissism, right? I studied at Cambridge. You went to DeVry. I'm going to get the job. Right? I'm just saying. Narcissism is in the fabric of our society. Yes or no? Somebody call us at 855-878-4652. More questions. How do you know when you're dealing with a narcissist? Right? Are narcissists more likely to be takers than they are givers? How about it? Very interesting questions. Can mild narcissism be a good thing? Is mild narcissism a kind of confidence? Where does the line get blurred? From conceit, confidence, arrogance to, fuck it, he's a narcissist, right? Is there such thing as some healthy selfishness? Like, isn't there a point in some relationships where you just go, it's time for me to be about me? I've been about you long enough. It's time for me to be about me. When does that cross the line? And think of this. If you're a narcissistic parent, are you now raising your child in an environment to where when they get into intimate relationships, they attract a narcissist like you? You remember that old saying, daughters date dudes that remind them of their dad? Right? Not to say dad's a narcissist, but to say there's this natural inclination to kind of gravitate towards individuals that you were raised by. So say mom's a narcissist, right? And you magnetize a narcissist in your life because that's what you're used to. That's what, you attract who raised you, what you are. Isn't that an interesting concept? 855-878-4652. We have a caller on the line. I think it's important that we get to them. Miss Jones, talk to us about this concept of narcissism. Are you dating one? Are you in trouble?
Hey, though, this is Linda.
Linda Jones, you're dating a narcissist, aren't you? Or is it you? It could be Linda.
Would a narcissist call in? I guess they'd...
Yes, she would.
Are you being narcissistic by calling in and saying, listen to me? I mean, Hi, Linda.
Hello. I'm wondering, my ex-husband told me recently that God told him to let me know that he forgives me for him cheating on me. Is that a narcissistic behavior?
Wow, that's a hella question. Did you hear that, Doc? Her ex-husband told her, I forgive you because you made me cheat on you.
But God told him to let me know.
God told him. This nigga's Joan of Arc. God told him.
God told him to forgive you for pushing him to cheat on you?
That's what happened. God told me, you're forgiven.
Well, no, I'd say, Linda, you know the answer. That's pretty narcissistic. If he's what he's really saying is, it's really interesting. The more, and tell me if he's this way, the more immature someone is, the more they believe that they are entitled to act on whatever their impulses are.
Yes.
Yes. Because part of maturity is pausing before you act on an impulse. We all have impulses. And that doesn't mean you should walk around suppressed and repressed like I am on this show, compared to my co-host.
And there's the joke attempt again.
It's the ignorant white comment of the day.
This is your conscience speaking.
I'm done.
Make your point and move on.
Wait, that was point 3 about interrupting somewhere. I think what he was saying is I was entitled to cheat on you. And it's interesting, there's a distinction between being entitled and deserving. And what's interesting is most narcissists act entitled. And what that means is, and they have something called narcissistic rage when you confront them. The reason being is that when you're entitled to something without deserving it, when someone says, no, you can't have that, you can't back it up. You don't have any substance because you're acting entitled instead of deserving. Whereas if you're a deserving person and someone says no to you, you may be upset, but then you pause and you make your case because you have earned it. So it sounds like he was a very entitled, immature guy. In 2.2, we'll be back.
You like that? You heard the music. You could have finished your point. You had a little something to go.
I didn't feel entitled to it.
Hysterical. Listen, we're about to take a quick break, but when we come back, more questions, more guests, more information about narcissism. I don't believe it's a real disease. Let's get into it when we come back. So what mornings? 855-878-4652. We'll be back at 2.2. Holla!
One of the questions that comes up periodically is to what extent could a corporation be considered to be psychopathic? And if we look at a corporation as a legal person, that it may not be that difficult to actually draw the transition between psychopathy in the individual to psychopathy in a corporation. We can go through the characteristics that define this particular disorder one by one and see how they might apply to corporations. They would have all the characteristics. And in fact, in many respects, a corporation of that sort is a prototypical psychopath.
Ladies and gentlemen, our country is a corporation. Our culture behaves like a corporation, like a psychopath. How then, if we are raised in this society, are we not all narcissists and psychopathic and selfish to some degree? Dr. G, talk to me about the DSM.
They every decade or two they they do a revision of the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual for the American Psychiatric Association. So they come up with all the latest illnesses and codes, and that's important for coding, for diagnoses, to get insurance to pay and all that. And in the recent edition, which is very controversial, I could be wrong, but I believe they have deleted narcissism as a disorder. So they don't have narcissistic personality disorder. And the reason for that is they believe that too many people are narcissistic.
How about it?
Meaning, well, I think you just said it. I think more and more people are self-involved. I heard a really good quote that I thought was kind of eloquent. And it said, people don't do what's important to them. They do what they care about. And the best people care about what's important to others.
That's good.
And so how often do you see people pausing to do something where they actually care about what's important to others?
But don't you think it's dangerous for the professional ilk of our society, and I'm talking about the doctors and the clinicians and the psychologists, to make a disease out of selfishness?
Well,
that's an interesting angle here.
Well, you know, through all, at least past a few decades in terms of psychiatry and diagnosis, they do something, I think this is interesting, they do something between, they call it something between an axis 1 or axis 2. And axis 1 is biological stuff that often needs, unfortunately, medication. That's schizophrenia, bipolar, manic depressive,
antisocial.
Depression. No, not antisocial. So axis 2 is the personality disorders. And personality disorders, they only respond to meds if they have an underlying, psychosis or depression. You can have a personality problem plus those other things. And the treatment, as flawed as it is for personality disorders, is psychotherapy. And you bring up an interesting point about, can narcissists be helped? And the definition, unfortunately, of psychopaths is they can't be helped. Now, that should mean we throw away the towel, but the idea is if they can't experience remorse, if they can't experience any responsibility for their actions, then why change them? But a narcissist, they're not always that way. Sometimes,
that's interesting.
In fact, I've kind of turned a corner because I'm often brought in to help narcissistic people who are very smart and very good at what they do, but they run over other people. And the distinction I make, and I'll push them away, is I'll treat anyone who's a narcissist because they don't know any better. But if they take delight in hurting people,
they know,
especially or hurting people below them, I won't work with them because I can't root for them.
Right.
And so there are some people that are self-involved because they don't know any better. And often the way I screen those people is sometimes if they're very smart, I'll listen to them and they'll be bragging and whatever. And I do something called the Columbo maneuver, which is after the detective. And so they're crowing and whatever, and they're talking, and then I'll sort of hit my head and I'll go, oh, it's a shame. And they'll say, what? I'll say, no, keep talking. And then I'll say, oh, it's a shame. And they'll say, what's a shame? And I'll say, do you know how much success you're leaving on the table because of how you piss people off? I mean, you've done well enough to get to this point, and they're bringing me in because, you're pretty good at what you do, but you are leaving success on the table, and you have no idea how much you're leaving. So that often hooks them in because they want to be more succcul. But those people I always put on probation.
Wow. So really quickly, we have two more of our regular cast members in the building right now. For the old school Murfreesboro, keep it real, down to the ground, old school wisdom, my uncle, Bobby Glanton Smith, is in the building, for one. And then for the feminine, modern, sister, intelligent woman's perspective, Brandy McGee.
It's in the building.
In the building. Talk to me, Bobby, about narcissism. Is it just some fancy medical term that a bunch of white people got together? Because let me say something about this, too. Back to the doc's point about the DSM. Early in the DSM's life, homosexuality was in the DSM. And then they got together and decided to take that out as a disease. Who makes the decision on what's a disease and what's not a disease? And if everybody's narcissistic, why should we even waste our time talking about it? Talk to me about that,
Well,
Bobby.
I'm going to say something about Bobby. Okay, got to make an
Oh,
emphasis.
shit.
He's going to, I asked before if black people blush, so we'll see if this makes him blush.
You're about to do something crazy.
Bobby
don't play. Real men don't play.
What I like about Bobby is I think he's the least narcissistic of all of us on the show, of the black males. And the reason for that
this is great.
is I think that, look, you and Geoff, your radio host, and me, I'm sort of, ramping up my narcissism so I can get heard occasionally. But, but part of us suffer from listen to me. And what I like about Bobby, when he speaks, it's kind of listen to this. It's not so listen to me, but I love, he comes in, listen to this, and this is how I sort of make sense of it. I'm not saying I'm right or wrong, but I think that's a great quality that he brings to the show, and that's why we don't bring him up that often for that reason.
Bobby, he complimented you.
And I appreciate it because I don't get many of those. And it gave me an opportunity to just really reflect on this notion of narcissism. I don't even know how to spell it. I used to, but I'm having trouble with some of the R's and the C's and all of that now.
It's all good.
And it's because I dismiss most of it on this belief, and that is self-confidence is sometimes considered narcissism. Sometimes people who are insecure act narcissistic to, cover their flaws. And I think I fall somewhere in the middle. I know people, and that's why I really appreciate you feeling that way, and I believe it's genuine, because I piss enough people off that they don't even bother with pretending that they like me or even respect what I got to say. And I've gotten old enough not to give a shit. And I'm real comfortable with that because the first thing I had to learn was I'm going to have to just deal with the fact that I am what I am, and in some circles that's intimidating to people. And I learned that primarily from being around high-profile folks who I didn't have to even struggle with, look at me, or all of that, because other people draw that out of me sometimes. And to know that I'm in a circle of people where I don't have to go through that, it appears that I'm not as narcissistic as other people swear that I am. So it's a conundrum for me to try to figure out where I fit in the profile of narcissism, but I'm going to take to heart what you said and say thank you very much.
Wow.
Wow. I just got a flash on you, so and I love having you on the show, and I think part of it is you are owned by something, and what you're owned by is the truth as you understand it. And then you share the truth as you understand it, and it comes across in a wonderful way, as opposed to, this is my point of view, and you better respect it. And it's just, I think, you're a role model for how to be able to, stand up for something, and not make it all ego-driven. So I love having you on the show.
Okay, that's a good point. Brandy?
That's fantastic. I'm just sitting here enjoying the love that's in the room right now.
Well, it's respect. It's respect. Love. Yeah.
Brandy, talk to us about...
respect you, too.
Well, thank you,
of course.
Dr. Mark.
Talk to us about social media and the selfie craze. You've got some people saying now that, selfies and social media is actually increasing narcissism amongst teens, amongst adults. What do you think of that?
I absolutely believe it is, because it's, I have friends, especially, well, it's not especially women, it's a little bit of everybody, but maybe so, especially women. It's like they have built a following of people on social media by snapping a picture and saying, look at me, look at my makeup, look at my boobs, look at my butt, look at my
classic sink
look
shot.
at me in the gym. Yeah. I mean, everything is sort of driven around kind of this sort of look at me attitude, and social media has taken that to, people take you into places where you would never go before. I've seen people post things on the internet of them getting waxed and, just really personal things. And it's like, why is it that you are that much into yourself that you think that we need to share this part of your life with you?
Maybe Bobby can see this in some of his friends. Sometimes I've seen some people who have been in the public eye, some celebrities, and one of them said to me, who had kind of peaked and then was kind of out of it, this was actually a pro athlete, and it was a female pro athlete. And one of the things she said is, when you go from somebody back to anybody, it's the same as being nobody.
Wow.
And I think there's a somebody envy, and just being anybody means you're a nobody.
A somebody envy.
Yeah, I'm going to be somebody, and I'll show you I'm somebody. And the point is, there's a desperation, and I think there's something about being anybody is like nothingness. And it's sad because I think what you see when people show selfies of the waxing thing, there's a desperation. Anyone who looks at that after they're finished laughing will say, "My God, you're so insecure." I mean, don't broadcast your insecurity. I mean, you want people to think well of you? What are you, crazy?
Mm-hmm. Great point.
Well, he said, are we going to break? I'll continue when I come back. It'll take longer.
Okay, no worries. Ladies and gentlemen, So What Morning Show's in the building. If you want to participate, 855-878-4652 is the number to dial. That's 855-878-4652. It's crazy right now because we're talking about, in my opinion, a mythological disease. It's mythological because I got to control these people some kind of way. So if I label them ill or sick, I can medicate them. And you know, medicine prescribed by psychiatrists changes brain function. That's a whole nother dance. We'll be back in 2.2, ladies and gentlemen. Crazy.
Welcome back. Now, millions of photos are shared on social media every day.
But an increasingly popular online craze is concerning parenting experts. They say it's creating a generation of narcissists.
Celebrities do it, even former First Ladies. It's the selfie, the digital self-portrait.
A selfie is basically a picture of yourself. It normally has this trademark sort of signature. A person's holding their hand out from their camera.
Tech expert Val Quinn says they're everywhere.
You got Facebook, you got Instagram, you got Snapchat, Twitter.
Teenage girls are 5 times more likely than boys to post photos of themselves online. 15-year-old Casey Grismali and her friends take hundreds of selfies every year.
We take selfies anywhere, everywhere. And if you look at a celebrity photo, you think, that looks really cool, I want to try and do that. It's a beauty contest sometimes because if your friend posts a picture and you look at it and you think like, oh, maybe I should do that like a little bit better.
Experts say we're raising a generation of self-promoting, self-absorbed oversharers.
Well, let's ask Sunrise parenting expert Michael Carr-Gregg what he thinks about this. Michael, good morning to you.
Good morning.
Are we raising a generation of narcissists?
Look, we've actually got some science behind this. A 2013 January study called the American Freshman Survey asked first-year university students to compare themselves to their peers. Now, they've been doing this survey since 1966, and in the last 4 years, there's been a dramatic rise in the number of first-year uni students who describe themselves, you're going to love this, as exceptional. Not only that, there's a 2006 study where kids were given the Narcissistic Personality Inventory, which is a 40-item test with items like the world would be a better place if I was in charge. 2/3 of these kids scored above average. So I think the answer to the question is a definite yes.
Oh, Michael, you grumpy old man.
That's me.
Isn't this just, with technology, the modern-day version of a slide night? Instead of being bored by Aunt Agnes's holiday photos for 4 hours, you just
take photos of yourself for 4 hours? That can't be healthy.
Not at all. You're going to accuse me of a moral panic. But think about this, Koshi, the privacy issues, because many of these kids post these things with their identity clearly known, the geotagging on, so not only people know who they are, but where they are. Yeah. Think about the bullying they're exposing.
And see, this is what I mean by a false disease. The survey said that most of the teens view themselves as exceptional. That's wrong.
Yeah, in this case, it is. I don't think it has anything to do with narcissism as much as it does with self-absorption without credentials or a resume. All right? Other than snapping a photo, what have you done that would make you feel that important to anybody other than yourself? And that's where it becomes problematic for me in terms of how do you define that. Mm-hmm. And I get what you're saying about it's a false narrative in a sense. I agree with that. But you got to call it something. And my estimate is just you full of yourself for the wrong reason.
Was Muhammad Ali a narcissist?
Absolutely.
No, he wasn't. He was the real deal. See, it's a difference when you're the real deal.
Is Kobe Bryant a narcissist?
No, he's the real deal. He's
Michael
a snitch
Jordan.
and a great basketball player.
Right? But I think narcissism is related to greatness.
No, it's not.
Because some guys...
No, I don't agree.
Can I finish my point?
Oh,
how about that?
You gonna do that.
Knock yourself out.
How about that?
Be narcissistic. Go ahead.
Knock yourself out.
You guys are exhibiting narcissistic behavior by interrupting me. Right?
No.
Okay, so again, when you find great people, there is a streak of narcissism in them if you look at their biography, who they are, what they've done. There's a certain, I don't give a fuck about anybody else. I'm here with it, right? I'm going to tunnel vision almost. And nothing matters, no one matters until I accomplish my goal. Quincy Jones was a guy like that. I met Quincy a few times. He's like that. The people I know have been, when I work for Madonna, there's a tunnel vision of, and nobody else matters.
Something I mentioned earlier. I think a better term is entitled versus deserving. Because I think when you talk about Muhammad Ali, when you talk about India, they're deserving, meaning there's a term called ETR, earn the right. They earn the right to say things and be heard.
So Cassius Clay at 22 years old earned the right. Nobody really knew what was up. And he came in there and said, I'm going to knock this motherfucker out in foe.
No.
Because I'm pretty and I'm the greatest in the world.
No,
before anybody knew it.
No, people can grow into who they're meant to be.
I think we're making excuses. We're going to have to bring in a professional because the doc has fallen off the wagon. April is on the line, somebody special. April Davis, please come in and clean up what the doctor was doing because it seems like he's justifying narcissism and some other things. I don't really understand what the doc is saying. Help us, Miss Davis, please.
Well, I do agree with somewhat of what you guys are saying in regards to, some of these celebrities or some of these people that have risen and they are definitely very successful. Because they're not the narcissism and people that are successful, it's not necessarily mutually exclusive. You can be a narcissist and be very successful. Mm-hmm. And it's maybe those traits of a narcissist that have got you to that point. There definitely are a lot of celebrities, a lot of politicians, just a lot of people, CEOs that have risen to power because of their narcissistic traits, and that they have a vision and they go after it and they get things done. But then on the other hand, you have plenty of those that, they like you said, they're entitled, or they think that they are something that clearly they're not, because they have this grandiose idea of who they are, and that's not actually it's not accurate.
Yeah, April, this is Doc. Thank you for that. And comment on the idea about sometimes you have to be single-minded to succeed. And single-minded, and I think what happens is if you actually have a vision or a goal and you see it clearly. So, for instance, we can throw in Steve Jobs, because he had a single-minded vision of the computer that the masses would like. And in fact, he saw it so clearly, he couldn't build it, but then when people threw something in front of him, he'd say, nah, I don't want the on-off switch on the iPad or whatever it was. And so talk about single-mindedness, because I think some of the greatest accomplishers of things is they had a single-mindedness that other people would say, well, they're self-involved, they're narcissists, but maybe they were dancing to this drum, this calling. So tell me what you think about any of that.
Well, it's definitely true that one of the behaviors of a narcissist is that they have this vision and it's kind of a tunnel vision, and they only see things one way. So when people come in with suggestions that might basically go against anything that they're thinking, that's going to be met with fire. They're not going to appreciate, or they do not like when people maybe counter them or come up with other ideas, because they want all the credit. Everything is theirs. They're best. They're entitled to everything too, and they will take advantage of those people, that anyone that is below them or maybe has a weakness below them as well.
So we were talking earlier before you came on, and I was talking about narcissism, say like a spiritual narcissism, it's in religion. I believe authority is a type of narcissism, because everything is validated by an authority, right? Whether it be education, whether it be religion. You know, the spiritual narcissism says, I'm a Christian, and, you know, all this other stuff, all these other religions, you guys are going to hell. And then of the Christians, only 144,000 of those are going to make it. So that entitlement of I'm chosen, say even the Jews, we're the chosen people. So anybody that isn't chosen, I don't know how it's going to work out for you. I think there's a kind of narcissism embedded in every institution we have. So I think it's so ubiquitous that not only is it not a disease, but I think it's a mechanism to keep people quiet in a lot of ways. Because look at the breakdown of what narcissism is. Prolonged grandiosity. What about the royal family? That's narcissism, right? That's prolonged grandiosity, is it not? What about the American government? The way they govern the people? What about how the society is stratified and poor people stay poor because they're locked in ageism, racism, sexism, classism? Is this not a type of societal narcissism? Talk to me about that, Ms. Davis.
Well, I think, you know, you're taking pieces of what narcissism is and applying it to a lot of different areas. And what really the narcissism comes down to is that it's somebody with all these like 5 characteristics. It takes 5 characteristics out of, like, I think it's 20 that they have to qualify
tell us
in
the
order
5.
for them to be considered as a narcissist.
Tell us the 5.
One of them you just mentioned is like grandiosity. They think they're better than everyone else. Another one is a lack of empathy. Like, they cannot relate to other people. They cannot, you know, if your mother died, they can't understand why you're upset or something like that. Another one is they're envious of others. So if they see other people doing well, they hate on them and will talk negatively about them. So fourth one is they take advantage of others in order to achieve their own ends. So they'll put other people down, they'll take advantage of their weaknesses, and just exploit them all together.
So here's my point. So here's my point here. I think you've laid those out pretty nicely. But they all apply to the culture in which we live. Everything you said can be applied to those institutions that I mentioned. Every single one. And if we're raised, listen, how we interface in a society is through cultural game rules, right? And if we're playing the cultural game rules that are established by the society in which we live, then how can we exclude them for responsibility of our mentality? If we're raised by a narcissistic culture, how can we then not be narcissists? Or how can everybody not be narcissists? And why would that then be considered a disease? I need to understand.
You know, Voltaire, he was a French philosopher, I guess.
Yes, we know.
I'm sure you know better than I do. I don't even know his first name, so you can fill me on that. But Frenchie Voltaire, I think it was.
Frenchie.
But one of his famous quotes was, "With great power comes great responsibility."
I thought that was Spider-Man.
Yeah.
No, that came afterwards.
That was Uncle Ben from Spider-Man. No, I'm just...
Like I said, forget Voltaire. But I think that's what we're talking about, is that I think it's okay if you have great power and authority, but I think you really have to feel that you have responsibility. Like, I think the royal family, now I'm not that tuned into them, but I think they feel a sense of great responsibility, the royal family in Great Britain.
Really?
You think
all of the colonialism and colonizing and... Come
like
on
I said,
now.
throw that to the curb.
Yeah, just stop it, damn it.
I'll save it for that's for my white
The
radio
lack
show,
of empathy and colonizing other countries and...
The royal family today, you'd say that they do. Everything they do is around charitable organizations, and it's just bringing attention to just different organizations out there that maybe could use more money or funding and stuff. They don't get paid to do that. They're goodwill ambassadors, basically.
That's who they are
I think
today.
what you mean.
Wow.
That's news to me.
Bobby, please, somebody save me from this morass.
Like I said.
They still living off wealth that was created by virtue of the subjugation, the domination, and everything else. So they still on easy street, so they got time to just,
now we're going to be philanthropists.
I was talking about the Kansas City Royals.
Okay. Now we can talk.
And the dot. Radio. Geoff, we need you. Geoff Brown couldn't make it today because he had a flat tire. But now I really miss Geoff after Dr. G and his foolishness and his folly. Anyway, we're about to take another quick break. When we come back, more guests, more questions. Again, narcissism. Very interesting topic. We'll be back at 2.2. Holla.
The roots of psychiatry have to do with control, power, and alienation from certain groups of people who are uncomfortable to be around. They were locked up in these places to get them out of the way. The history of psychiatry, I think, really is related to institutions.
Bethlehem Royal Hospital in London was one of the world's first psychiatric institutions. Commonly referred to as Bedlam, the hospital was little more than a warehouse for those deemed mad. Inmates were confined to cages, closets, and animal stalls, chained to walls, and flogged, while the asylum charged admission for public viewings. In the 18th century, William Batty was the first to promote that his institutions could cure the mentally ill. Batty's madhouses made him one of the richest men in England, though his treatments were every bit as inhumane as those practiced in Bedlam, with not a single patient cured. His financial success triggered a boom in the asylum business and an opportunity for psychiatrists to cash in on this new growth industry.
This was an era where, on both sides of the Atlantic, specialized institutions for the mentally ill are beginning to be built in large numbers. Those institutions date back certainly to the beginning of the 18th century, and in a few cases even earlier than that. But the explosive growth of an asylum sector, of asylumdom, as some historians have called it, is very much a 19th century phenomenon. It's that period when the state is persuaded to invest tax dollars in building these places.
But while those who ran the institutions were getting rich, psychiatrists yet lacked the credibility to maximize their cash flow.
In order to justify their profession, they needed to come up with these biological solutions, or they didn't have any profession. The only way for them to solve that was to attempt to start believing that these people that were suffering from emotional disorders was from a biological basis.
Whatever was done to make this person more manageable would be simply called a treatment. And the sad reality is that many of these so-called treatments were, in essence, torture.
The near-drowning devices that were developed in this period, for example, must have been appallingly frightening. For example, one device involved putting the patient into a coffin, closing the lid, and dumping it into a bath of water, and then opening it up and trying to revive the patient. There were a range of these things, and the mortality rate was very, very high.
Psychiatrists next sought to give credence to their practices by cloaking them in the language of medicine. This repackaging of treatment became known as the medical model.
Somebody who's really hyper and manic, if you're wrapped up in a cold sheet and dunked into some water, you're going to quit acting manic because that's a punishing treatment. But as soon as the symptoms started to go away, they started to believe that somehow by wrapping them up and dunking them in cold water, it was draining the toxics out of their body. So they built the medical model around that.
Pushing the biological theory of mental illness a step further, an American, Benjamin Rush, put forth the idea that insanity was caused by too much blood in the head. The cure? Remove the blood by any means possible. Restraint, cold water, bleeding, even terror. And with that, a new medical model was created.
Benjamin Rush was probably the most famous American physician of the Revolutionary era. Rush was known as the master bleeder. He bled his patients for madness, He also invented something called the tranquilizer. It's a chair that looks a little bit like an electric chair. The patient was confined in this apparatus, sometimes with cold water applied to his or her head, for some hours at a time, and Rush announces in a letter that he's invented this new contraption and dubbed it the tranquilizer.
Rush's often lethal procedures were detailed in his 1812 textbook, which remained psychiatry's authoritative source for the next 70 years. He was so revered that in 1965, Rush was enshrined as the father of American psychiatry on the seal of the American Psychiatric Association. As the 1800s wore on, psychiatry's mounting failures at curing madness threatened their financial bottom line, forcing them to invent new medical models.
The cures promised were not delivered. So by the 1860s and 70s, a growing mood of pessimism was covering Europe and North America, that effectively the new institutions were ever growing in size, but not growing in their effectiveness.
The 20th century brought more medical models. American psychiatrist Henry Cotton mutilated his patients by removing their body parts, declaring this a breakthrough in the treatment of mental illness.
The earliest target was the teeth and then the tonsils and the sinuses. But when patients didn't get better, the enthusiasts for this treatment then started to move down the body and to say, well, obviously patients have swallowed bacteria in their saliva, so stomachs need to go, spleens need to go, colons need to go.
As public outcry escalated over torture and maiming of patients, psychiatrists would invent new methods, each one hailed as the miracle cure. But each one was ultimately proven no more effective nor less brutal than the last.
This is a history of psychiatry, more or less, to damage the patient. I mean, this is a version of the original model, which was to chain them like animals.
If you're doing it to somebody because you insist that they have to change, and you're going to do that by turning the screws, you might say, whether it's with medication, restraint, whatever, that's torture. And a huge part of what psychiatry has done really comes down to torture.
As the 20th century progressed, psychiatry would continue to seek legitimacy by transforming itself into a medical discipline. But they succeeded only in creating more efficient ways of inflicting mental and physical torture and death, a legacy that has carried forward into modern psychiatry, with its most profitable medical model to date, the mass drugging of millions. But to do this, psychiatrists first had to shatter one of mankind's most cherished beliefs, decreeing that people were not what they thought they were.
Okay, I'm a psychiatrist.
Yeah. I'm gonna let you talk. Shit.
I'm gonna move over a little bit.
Yeah,
in the
we're gonna
opposite
step
direction.
to the side and let you deal with that.
No, I agree with a lot of that, so that's why I'm pausing, and I'm a psychiatrist. There is a book called The Moral Treatment of American Psychiatry, and it's out of print, but you should check it out if you can get it. It's by a guy named Backover, and I actually read it in my training, which was in the 1970s. And what's interesting is what happened is around the time of the Civil War, there was a bunch of very humane psychiatrists who, instead of treating patients by locking them up, they had these patients live with them in the psychiatrist's home, and they do farming. They treat them like people, and the recovery rate was pretty high. Mm-hmm. And then what happened is the American thing is, well, if a rule's good, let's make it bigger. And so they started to increase the size of those, and they increased them into institutions, and they increased them into big mental hospitals. And then what happened is they kind of dehumanized it. And when they dehumanized it, but if you read this, you'll say, why aren't we doing this now? And I think the challenge right now is it required a kind of patience, that people don't have. People are very impatient now. And I think if you rush someone who doesn't have a psychiatric disorder but is a little bit slower than you, and the way they think, you're going to get irritable with them. You're going to jump down their throat. And so there's actually an organization that I'm promoting everywhere called the Life Adjustment Team, lifeadjustmentteam.com. And I'm promoting it because what they have is case managers who work with people where they live. So they don't have offices. They go out and meet psychiatric, drug, and alcohol people who relapse greatly, and they form a teaching, mentoring, coaching, kind of a loving bond, and they have decreased relapse by 90%.
Wow.
And so nobody knows about this.
Is there a website?
lifeadjustmentteam.com. And actually the founder, Pete Lynette, Linnett, he was on Good Day LA talking about the need to treat people where they live as opposed to having them come to your office for an hour and maybe you have a good conversation, but then they get triggered by a text message or whatever.
Right.
So the idea is spend up to 9 hours a week with them and they can internalize that, whereas once a week for an hour, or if you're seeing a psychiatrist for meds, once a month for 20 minutes. It's crazy.
It's crazy, yeah. Listen, April Davis on the line. Can you tell our fans where they can find you and support your work? You have a website or something like that? April?
Oh, sorry. Yes, yes. It's cupidscronies.com, cupidscronies.com.
Let me just say. Oh, there it is up there on the website. We see it. cupidscronies.com. Let me just say, we really appreciate all of your information, your insight, your passion. You're a very, very great guest and beautiful and all of that. We might have to have you back sometime soon. Are you down for that?
Of course, of course. I was just going to say I agree with what he was saying, because when you go to somebody's home and you're helping them, it's just they're going to be so much more open to it than if you take them out of their comfort zone and put them into a facility or put them into an office, with white walls. It's just so much more intimidating. So I think that this life adjustment team, that sounds amazing what they're doing.
Wow. Well, thank you. We really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
All righty. Ladies and gentlemen, So What Mornings in the building. This is a very interesting topic. Narcissism. Would people ever call you a narcissist, Bobby? Has it ever happened?
I've been called worse than that. And during the break, we were having a discussion, Brandon and I was sharing with a few years ago, actually many years ago, I was living in Louisville, Kentucky, finding my way. And this lady that I work with, she pulled me to the side and she said, you have a lot of problem with women, don't you? Because they perceive you as someone who thinks too much of themselves. I said, look, I had a good-looking mama. And my daddy must have been decent-looking, too. So I don't know why people want me to act like I'm an ugly guy, you know? Wow. And she said, it's not just that. It's just how you wear that.
Yeah.
It can be overwhelming to people, that kind of thing. And now she told me that she went even deeper than that. She said, don't spend no time in the mirror if you're in the company of a woman. I said, I don't. She said, well, you got another vibe that's causing that perception that you think too much of yourself. So, no, I'm not narcissistic, but it's in the ballpark.
There it is. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll be back. More questions, more guests. It's crazy. Narcissism. Let me clear my throat. We'll be back.
Hey, who's that begging on that song right there?
It's the homie Paris.
Oh,
wow. Yeah, it's all good. We'll be back.
Pathological narcissism is a ubiquitous phenomenon because every human being, regardless of the nature of his society and culture, develops healthy narcissism early in life. Healthy narcissism is rendered pathological by abuse, and abuse, alas, is a universal human behavior. By abuse, we mean any refusal to acknowledge the emerging boundaries of the individual. Smothering, doting, and excessive expectations are as abusive as beating and incest. With 7 billion humans on the planet, the need to assert oneself, to be noticed, to be recognized as unique, is ever more pressing. No one likes to feel like a cog in a machine, an atom in an organism, or a speck among billions. Consumerism and mass communication that lead to global cultural and societal homogeneity foster the same narcissistic reactions and provoke the same narcissistic defenses in whole collectives as they do in individuals.
Wow.
Yeah, somebody needs to give me an interpretation.
Yeah, I was going to say, what exactly
I understood
was he
every
saying?
word.
All right. Well,
break it down.
Well, you guys hear any Ebonics? What is that? He was very clear. Said everybody has an innate. There's 7 billion people on the planet Earth. Everybody has an innate desire to want to assert themselves. He said nobody wants to just be a cog in the machine or an atom in the organism. People want to be the organism. They want to be the movement. And it seems to be natural to have a natural, narcissistic, selfish kind of drive on the inside. And April Davis mentioned that earlier. Again, for the listeners, people want to know what that book is you mentioned. Somebody hit me and said, could you tell them the name of the book?
It's called The Moral, M-O-R-A-L, Treatment in American Psychiatry by J.S. Bockoven, B-O-C-K-H-O-V-E-N. I emailed it to you.
Excellent. Now, let me just say this really quickly, and then over to Bobby, and then we have a guest on the line that's listening right now. Is Jay-Z the most narcissistic rapper ever? Is rap itself? What about Kanye? What about the genre of rap music? I mean, it's been braggadocio since the very beginning. It's been aggrandizing of accomplishments. It's been, I'm the greatest ever. I mean, is that really a bad thing? Some people say Kanye is the most arrogant, narcissistic MC of all times. Bobby?
I think generationally, that has become something of a phenomenon, because when Ali was raising his hand and saying, I'm the greatest, he had already proved that he was the greatest. He stepped in the ring and told him, I'm going to beat Sonny Liston for the world championship. And he felt that way before he did it, and he went out and proved it. Now, you can be packaged as all of that without any substance whatsoever.
Good point.
And I have a problem with that, but in terms of defining why people are motivated to do certain things, I honestly have seen in my lifetime people overlook or not admit that they listen to the following station 24/7, WIIFM. What's in it for me?
WIIFM.
We stay on that station all the time. And when we're in the presence of people who ignore that, we go right back to that station. What's in it for me? You done told me about you and all of your accomplishments and everything, but I'm over here listening to WIIFM.
There was a word in what you said, ignore, and I could, sometimes because people are preoccupied with something that's on their mind, and they may not be self-centered, they're just preoccupied. Sometimes when they don't notice you, it doesn't mean they are ignoring you, but I think a lot of people personalize it. It's like, well, you're not noticing me, you're not listening to me. Well, I'm sorry, I got a kid in the hospital, I could be dying, I have other things on my mind. No, you are ignoring me. And I think people are too quick and oversensitive, that if you're not tuning into me right now when I want it, you're ignoring me, and that justifies my coming after you. And I think we've become really oversensitive to this.
We have another guest on the line right now, Dr. Ellen Kenner. I don't know if you've been listening as we've been kind of going over narcissism, what is, what isn't, what's the gray line between arrogance and conceit, and then narcissistic personality disorder, NPD. Can you come in and kind of expand on what are the basic telltale signs of someone suffering from NPD and how to deal with them?
From narcissistic personality disorder.
Yes.
Well, I have been listening to you, and I think there's a major confusion that's pervasive. And I think that I need to clarify that first.
Please do.
And I'll do it by describing the narcissist person. The narcissist person is a person who might be very charismatic, they may be charming, they may love bomb you, they may seem really nice, but they're very empty inside. They've never built genuine self-esteem. And because they don't have genuine self-esteem, what do you have to do if you don't have the real thing? You fake it.
Fake it till you make it, yeah.
And so they can't leave themselves open. A person with genuine self-esteem is an open book. They have nothing to hide. But if you feel very inadequate, very vulnerable inside, and very much angry at the world, which is really anger at yourself turned outwards, and you feel like you need some sort of control, then you take on this feeling, and here is part of the definition that you asked for, of grandiosity or superiority. You adopt a stance that I'm more important than you. You need constant attention. You need to be in the spotlight. And there are a lot of, I mean, my sister's delightful, and she's not a narcissist. And when we're together, she lights up the room, and that's a wonderful spotlight. So I'm not saying being in the spotlight is bad. It's that making it so that nobody else is visible, psychologically visible. It's all about you. And you need to show off. You're actually very envious of anybody who has genuine self-esteem, so you try to put them down, subtle put-downs. And you feel like the world owes you. And you know, what else do? You exploit others, and you don't have any empathy. So those are when we talk about narcissism, those are the key factors that you're looking for.
Dr. Ellen, that sounded very nice, but it also sounds like part of the human condition. And can we justify those things collectively as a disease, as a mental disorder?
Well, you know, you're talking about how they group people into categories. You know, you've got anxiety disorder, you've got depressive disorder. I'm a different type of psychologist. I recognize what they call nosology, all these different categories, and they do have a function. I look at every individual as an individual, not as a collective. And I will judge a person who comes in. Sometimes someone comes in from a very bad family, and voila, you've got a lovely person who's trapped in a very bad family.
Wow.
Or it could be vice versa. You could have a very upstanding family, and you have one bad apple. And each person is an individual, so I very much am against that collectivist viewpoint that somehow we all digest food together, we all breathe together, and, you know. But I'm not against categorizing so long as the application is to an individual.
Excellent. Really quickly, because I don't want to waste your time here. We want to get your websites because we want people to follow you and go to your website. You're not being put off the show just yet because we still need your insight. But what is your website really quickly? What is that?
Okay. I have my website is Dr. Kenner, DrKenner.com. And I've got articles, I've written books I recommend, and I have a radio show, too, The Rational Basis of Happiness, so there are podcasts. But also, I wrote a book with my co-author that has a very provocative title. It's a very daring title. And the title is The Selfish Path to Romance.
Yes.
How to Love with Passion and Reason. And what we mean there is not the me only, my way, or the highway, narcissistic way to romance, the mean, rotten way. We mean the self-esteem, self-nurturing, self-respecting for both partners way to romance.
Doc, are you still there?
Yeah, I'm still here.
Okay, I had one more question based off of what you said before, and I thought it was really profound when you were talking about self-esteem and the narcissist. Is it kind of like hyper-masculinity, where, you know, the person who's insecure about their masculinity becomes super macho, like over-the-top macho? Is it kind of like that?
Well, that would be one form of it. You feel real insecure, and so you try to cover up that insecurity instead of trying to ask yourself questions. Why don't I feel masculine enough? Why this bravado? Why do I need to have the motorcycle and the chains, or if it goes in the other direction, the top hat and the whatever, you know, whichever direction it goes? Why? And people are afraid, many people are afraid to ask questions of themselves. They can ask it of anyone else, but introspection, looking inward and asking yourself questions is very hard. So that would be one manifestation of it, but it can show up in many manifestations. And it's not just men. It's women too.
Ooh, yeah.
Yeah. This is the doc in the show, so we're a paradox. Anyway.
Boom, boom.
Okay, Geoff Brown's
took me a
on
second.
I apologize for that.
It's terrible.
I know.
Jeff!
I'm acting out.
Jeff, where are
He's
you?
acting out.
I'm being narcissistic.
He's acting out, really. He really is.
Okay, let me speak to the other doc on that thing.
Okay.
Great to have you. Can you share a kind of question that that you have asked narcissistic people, or they can ask themselves, that can reveal to them that this isn't serving them? What's a question you've asked someone that causes them to go, whoa, this may not be a good thing? Can you share some of your secret sauce?
Oh, which doc are you talking to?
I'm talking to you. No, I talk to myself. I'm a doc anyway.
The paradox
I
are
would
talking
ask
to each
them,
other.
Tell me what's most important to you in life, or tell me what you've liked as a kid, or I want to get underneath all the layers. And they may initially tell me that they really like their business. Maybe they've become a type A person and they control everyone around them. But it isn't like a collaborative business. It isn't a fun place to work at because they're so micromanaging. And say, tell me what you like about that. And you do something that's called the downward arrow technique.
Oh, good.
Whenever answer is given, you say, and tell me more about that. So tell me, and where did that come from? It sounds like you really like to be in charge and be in control. And tell me a little bit more about that. Well, I felt, I don't know, you might get a few layers down. I felt out of control as a kid, and I promised myself I'd always be in control. And tell me, how does that work for you? You could go in a different direction, too. But you keep pursuing their own thought path, so it's not you lecturing to them. It's you guiding them on their own self-discovery to the point where you're uncovering some of their modus operandi, their core premises, their core ideas that drive them. But you have to do that in a context. I never try to take away a person's what's holding them up initially, the props, until I help them see the possibility of building self-esteem genuinely.
That's wonderful. What's it called? The downward spiral?
It's called the downward arrow technique.
Downward arrow technique.
You take the answer they first give you and tell me more about that, and tell me a little bit more about that. And where does that come from? And you keep tracking that down, and you usually get to some very powerful emotions.
Wow. Thank you so much for that. Hang on. We're about to take another quick break. That's the big pill in the background. These are my homies. Live band. Got the Tower of Power horn section. My homeboy from Dina is the DJ. It's cold music. We'll be back in a bit. Unobtainable. Let's go.
Narcissistic personality disorder is one of the most interesting personality disorders because most of us feel like we know somebody who's a narcissist, and probably we do. Most of us are familiar with the idea of narcissism or narcissists. They basically are very self-centered, and this is the hallmark of the personality disorder, but it goes to an extreme that can lead to problems. They're so insistent on being considered the best or only associating with the best. They believe that they're entitled to special treatment and that other people and other people's needs matter less. So there was one study done in England where they evaluated executives from various companies and they evaluated inmates at the local prison, and they found that the rate of narcissism was about equal between the two groups. And what this tells us is an important point about psychiatric symptoms and psychiatric traits in general, is that they exist along a continuum, and the presence of a particular trait by itself doesn't define whether or not something is going to be a disorder. People can use particular extremes or particular traits and make it work for them and actually be quite successful. And often it's believed that for certain executives, a certain level of narcissism can actually be a good thing. Unfortunately, it often makes these people difficult to work with, and it's not a good thing for the people who are around them. So in terms of treatment, individuals with narcissistic personality disorder don't necessarily come into treatment specifically for the personality disorder, but if the traits of the disorder lead them to the same kind of conflicts in their careers or in their personal relationships, they can develop depressive symptoms and will often present to treatment due to the depression or the anxiety that's caused by their narcissistic traits. And the best treatment for narcissistic personality disorder is psychotherapy, and it usually is a long-term treatment But in general, individuals who do stick with treatment can improve, and that is the main point. Unfortunately, many individuals with narcissistic personality disorder can't tolerate the treatment and usually drop out of treatment before they've had any significant improvement.
Ladies and gentlemen, that was a very interesting video, and it covered a lot of stuff that we covered today. But again, well, you'll hear it in my final statement. Dr. Ellen Kinner.
Yes.
You're still with us, yeah?
Yes, of course.
This is a great, great, great show today, and I really appreciate all of the information you've shared with us. Help me to understand something really quickly. If you're in an intimate relationship or marriage with someone and you discover that they are a narcissist, like they suffer from NPD, do you throw the baby out with the bathwater, or how do you heal the relationship or fix the relationship or cope, or how do you deal with that kind of person?
You go into therapy yourself and figure out an exit plan.
Wow. That's a deal breaker then, yeah?
I'm saying that just if I'm thinking of very advanced narcissism, I mean, people are mixed, and there can be very good aspects of a person that's fighting against their own tendency toward narcissism, so they may not be a full-blown narcissist at the time, at any moment. But you don't ever want to find yourself trapped in a marriage, or even having the person as a roommate or a coworker, or as a boss, who's always putting you down, who's trying to control you, who tries to isolate you from other people, who needs to be in the spotlight all the time. We call that advanced narcissism would be an abusive relationship. Where you have to walk on eggshells all the time. You're worried about what they'll say to you. You're worried that they have to control by what? Maybe anger at you, or put downs, or humiliation, or and unfortunately, many partners buy into it. They tend to find partners who are people pleasers.
So you're saying this is more of a psychological kind of abuse, emotional abuse, verbal abuse, even, right?
It can, well, yeah, if it's all about me and you dare to talk about you, I want to shift the focus back to me. Well, what about my kids? Or what about my job? I'll turn it back on me. And if you dare to have the audacity, the courage to continue talking about yourself, I'm not going to be a happy camper if I'm a me only, my way or the highway person.
Wow.
So, if you're trapped with, and I've helped many people deal with narcissists, typically as that clip that you had illustrated, narcissists do not like being in therapy because they know on some level that they don't even want to clearly identify to themselves that they're a mess inside.
Wow.
And so they can't even hold up a psychological mirror to themselves.
Doc?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I've written a few books, and I wrote a book on listening. And my next book, which I am a narcissist.
You had to lead with that.
There you go.
Thanks.
Thank you. No, that was being a topper instead of a plusser. We talked about that on the prior show. But my next book is about how do you have conversations with people that kind of make you nuts, and so that'll be out in a couple of years. But one of the tips that I've learned for many years, and it doesn't always work, but there's something that I say that, bared teeth gets bared teeth, bared neck sometimes gets bared neck. And so what you want to do is have skin in the game, and something that has worked with some of the people I know who have been with narcissists is to say something such as, I need your help with something. But you say it not in a kind of an intriguing way, and they may go, what? But they might say, what? Because the tone is, I need your help with something, and they'll say, what? And if you were to say, you are capable, whether you intend it or not, you are capable of making me feel worse about myself than anyone I know. And my way of dealing with it is to avoid you. And I don't have any control over it. And I need your help because you may have even picked it up that I find ways to avoid you, and I need your help to do something so that I don't feel so awful about myself. And I'm hoping that'll matter to you enough so that you at least think about it. So you're making kind of a statement, and you're putting your neck out there, and they can say, "Oh, the heck with you," and whatever.
Oh, it's gonna get chopped off.
Yeah.
See, Bobby, we from Tennessee.
Yeah.
That just sounds like a bad person to me.
Well, not only that, I wouldn't take that kind of risk if I even had a feeling like that about somebody. I wouldn't give them that kind of ammunition because typically they're gonna use it against
you. But where it helps, and I want you guys to weigh in. So hold your thought. See, if you say something like that, we don't have any control over how people hear what we say. We have control of how we say it. And when you can say something that honest, and if they chop your head off, that gets you closer to the realization this is never going to change, and I better get out. So what you can say after a conversation,
it's like an opportunity to dodge the bullet when you see that.
And when you say that and they rip it apart, it helps you realize inside yourself that's about as honest as I can be. That's about as non-reactive as I can be, and if that's how they deal with it. Now, one thing to be aware of is a lot of narcissists, they have to win every point. So they can say whatever they want and just let it go, because sometimes the next day they may come back and say, so try not to get too hurt by whatever the response is, because sometimes, not that often, but the next day they'll say, that conversation, that was kind of a crappy comment I said to you, and you just caught me off guard.
But what if they never apologize? What if they never own up?
Then it gets you closer to say to yourself, what am I really getting from this?
Wow, Brandy?
Yeah, no, I was just going to say, I know you guys probably would not react well, or you're saying that you wouldn't react well to somebody saying that, but if you're in a relationship with somebody and there's something invested and there's a reason for you to want to work it out, and you come to them with something like that and they don't respond well, and I know I've dated some narcissists before, and you could switch things around to hopefully okay, well, let me say it to you this way so that you can understand what I'm hearing. And at some point you're like, you know what? You're never going to hear me.
Ever.
So I have to decide then, for me, does this work for me or not? I have to turn and be a little bit narcissistic for myself, for my own good, because some people just, it doesn't matter how you flip it. They're never gonna give you any amount of that type of attention.
Right. We have to wrap Dr. Ellen Kenner.
Yeah, I would love to jump in.
Listen, make your final thought here, and then when you're done, tell them the website one more time, because I want them to visit
Brandy, or I think it was Brandy you said.
Yes, that's right.
I would never consider what you're doing, that wonderful self-assertion that you had, as narcissistic yourself. That is self-assertive. That's that selfishness that I talk about. That selfish only means concern with one's own interest. It doesn't imply whether you do it negatively or positively.
Right.
And if you do it positively, you're building self-respect and self-esteem, and you're nurturing yourself. It's all the good stuff. So don't give it the name narcissism. And I'll give you my website. It's drkenner.com, drkenner.com, or selfishromance.com.
Wow, thank you so much, Dr. Kenner.
This has been a lot of fun. Oh, and I love what the other doc said. I think that's the other doc. I thought that was a great message.
Right, the paradox. Yeah, we got it. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. We appreciate it. And maybe you could come back sometime soon. Thank you so much.
We like that. Anytime.
Yes. Bobby, you had a final thought, and then Brandy.
Well, my reaction to what they're calling narcissism is behavior. Good behavior, bad behavior. And my rule of thumb is, when I deal with human beings, I'm going to start with the nice piece. I'm going to be nice to you, because I'm invested in people in that way.
Right.
I'll lick you till I lick you clean. Then I'm not going to lick you anymore. Just that simple.
Takes a licking, keeps on ticking.
And there you have it, another joke attempt. Brandy?
No, I mean, wow. Over here licking clean.
Like 8 attempts this show. Geoff! Go ahead.
No, I mean, and going in what the doctor was saying, I said narcissism, but I don't think it's necessarily narcissism to take care of yourself. I think it's absolutely, you must do that, and if you don't do that, you're in a world of trouble. So that's all I have to say.
Excellent. We're about to take a quick break. When we come back, final thoughts, and we're wrapping. Great show. Oh, I love this record. This is the Big Pill again. Man, this is a great band. Funky. Check it out. Oh my God, I love that.
I want music like that for me.
Wrong. You're going to keep with the elevator music and the whiteness of it all. But you said something during the break that was very poignant and profound. I will share a piece of my final thought with you. Please say that.
One of the reasons people stay in relationships with narcissists or stay in jobs that they can't stand or stay with a lemon car that they can't let go of is they can't believe and accept that they're not going to get anything back from everything they put into it. So they can't accept that that they can't let go of a future that is never going to happen. And they just keep, and hope is not a strategy.
Wow. Wow. I love that, but it still kind of illustrates my point about people are in it for self-interest. And for me, personally, listen, NPD characteristics and traits: abusive cycle, alienation, always and never statements, anger, baiting, blaming, bullying, cheating, denial, disassociation, domestic theft, emotional blackmail, sense of entitlement, false accusation, favoritism, fortuitous litigation, gaslighting, grooming, harassment, hovers and hovering, impulsiveness, imposed isolation, intimidation, invalidation, lack of conscious, lack of objective, object consistency, magical thinking, listen to that, neglect, normalizing, no-win scenarios, objectification, parental alienation syndrome, pathological lying, proxy recruitment, raging, violence and impulsive aggression, sabotage, scapegoat. Listen, it goes on and on and on and on. It sounds like just a myriad of definitions that describes the human condition. To me, everyone is like this. We live in a culture, to some degree, whether you like it or not, to some degree, everyone has these things going on in their life. And we live in a culture that actually grooms us to be this way. You can't be raised in a poisonous society and think that some of that poison ain't going to get into you. It's how we are. And for some of us to step aside and say things like, they have it worse than us, so they have a disease now, and they need treatment. To me, that's the problem. The society in and of itself is sick. I always make this quote from my favorite philosopher, J. Krishnamurti. It is no measure of health to be fully integrated into a sick society. So what we're doing now, according to a sick society's definition, is assimilating to what is considered normal. There is no normal in sickness. It's the sick calling the sicker, ill, right? We're all sick. And at the end of the day, you can't turn the human condition into a disease unless we all have it. And if we all have it and then there's no cure, we should find a way, right? There's no cure, right? So we should find a way to try to just say, okay, accept who we are as human beings, as opposed to labeling. I see some people that are in the motivational speaking zone that says, be around people who are like you, right? Be around people who have the same goals as you, right? First off, if you've attracted a sick motherfucker, chances are you might be sick or you wouldn't have attracted him in the first place. My big mama used to say, you wouldn't be in an accident if you weren't there. So guess what? If you're attracting this, you must be this. You can't bring something into your sphere, into your being, if you're not that inherently. So again, it's a scapegoating that goes back to entitlement. I don't deserve this. How did this happen to me? Because you're you. Those are my final thoughts. You better remember, relationship is the university of you. And until you accept the reflections that manifest to you as curriculum, you're going to keep taking them classes over and over again. That's what I got to say on it. Now, with that said, I want to tell everybody I appreciate y'all for weighing in. We ain't got no answers. We just want to spark the damn conversation. Let's keep talking. Let's keep challenging the beliefs of all of this stuff. Because if we don't, we just accept it and try to fit in. And if you're fitting in, you're not alive, in my opinion. You got to challenge it. So what mornings? It's what we do. We'll be back next week with another flamer. I had a ball. Oh, don't forget, go to my man's website, Ramomart, right? Ramomart, you gotta go there, support the brother's work. I just like to keep supporting.
What about me? What about me?
Oh, Bobby
At
Glanton.
Glanton Smith, that's a Twitter joint. RealMenDon'tPlay.com. Get with me. Get with me.
We love you all. We'll be back next week. Deuces!